Welcome back. As we left the conversation very briefly, you were talking about their rights as an American from a constitutional perspective. It ends the moment there's an imminent threat. But it seems as though that gets blurred, not only in the heat of the moment, but as well when it comes to who the assailant is, because we've seen the studies from the FBI and others that show that if it's a white male, it's seen at a certain threat level, but if it's a black male, the threat level is perceived at a lot higher level, even if there's not a genuine threat. So even that term of an imminent threat seems to be very fuzzy. I mean, in 2012, an imminent threat to Leon Ford Jr. was, after showing all the documentation, he was still seen as being a wanted felon, and you have Dervish reaching into the car. We've seen this multiple occasions. Eric Garner. You see there's other situations. So even the term imminent threat seems to get fuzzy in 2015.
Leon Ford did everything right. I mean, I don't think there's much question that the police conduct in that incident was way outside. But isn't that what people are having a complaint with, is the fact that you're seeing too many of these types of situations where all somebody does wrong. And now, Ellis, you can jump in. If somebody gets a little nervous, if somebody moves just a little bit, I mean, Tamir Rice, he's walking around with a toy gun, which kids have done in America throughout the 20th century. The police pull up and immediately shoot him. And this was a police officer that had a record of being a bad police officer. That's
and
the
they
problem.
end up getting recycled.
Right, and we don't, right. Look, we understand that, we want to understand, and I think we have a right to believe, that most law enforcement officers are on the good side.
I concur with that.
Okay. And that this is why I brought up earlier that it's important, if we're going to have an honest dialogue and conversation, there's some inconvenient truths. Not everything is racial. Not everything is the cop is completely unhinged.
But here's the thing, though, E. When you look at the statistics, and you bring up what Beth brought up, and the fact that when you talk about what is a perceived threat, and it's one regard for a certain type of American, and it's darn near off the charts for a second type of American, when you see 10-year-old black boys are perceived as 20-year-old black men.
That's exactly right.
When you have all of that baked into the cake, then it's more than just law enforcement procedures.
I understand that, and I'm not suggesting otherwise. What I'm suggesting is, if you want to have an honest conversation about what happens in each and every one of these cases, video or otherwise, they need to be all-inclusive. And all-inclusive includes whether or not you follow the rules. Now, you know, my point of view with that, I've had it with the idea that it's, well, they followed the rules, so it's okay. Then you've heard me say many times, we need to change the rule book.
Because that's how grand juries always apparently let these police officers off.
Well, there's a lot of reasons once you start talking about the grand jury that will keep us here forever. But I have to say something I hope that I'm wrong about. I'm not as positive as Leon is. To be perfectly honest, this is 2015. What in the hell are we still having this conversation about at the most fundamental levels? And I have to tell you, all of you, I'm not at a point right now where I'm feeling that as a society that we have the patience, we even have the courage, we have the interest, the time, or are in a position, a posture where we're willing to really have that conversation.
I agree with some of what you're saying, E. I agree with a lot of your passion, obviously, because I don't want you jumping across the table.
No.
I know I'm loud. I'm just teasing you. But at the same exact time, Tamika, there's something to be said. One thing that I captured that you said was the courage. And when I hear Leon's story, I hear Tamika's story, I hear others' story, that courage seems to be out there. But Tamika, how do we transition that courage into substance, into something tangible, so that we're not doing what Ellis says, which is continuing this conversation where, you know, Beth's seeing the good work that a lot of police officers are doing, and I see it as well, but I can still point back to these incidences occurring. I mean, based on the statistics, within another 72 hours, we're going to hear of another incident.
Well, I think that, again, accountability, and also I think video, the introduction of video now, where you can actually see for yourself what's happening, and we can't deny what's happening, Ellis, we can't deny what's happening. I think that that's where it's going to be. It's going to be us visually being able to see exactly what is happening, and then now we're.
There's no question that seeing it changes the whole game.
It changes the whole game.
It changes a totally different game. What inflames it at a level that is very uncomfortable is we are not only seeing it, we are seeing it in applications of excessive or deadly force.
And in real time.
In real time. Excessive or deadly force. Lord knows what we don't see when the video's not there for something that might not be at the level of excessive or deadly force. There are very specific rules and regulations and laws as it relates to the use or non-use of death and deadly force.
E, hold that thought, because when I come back, what I want to end up doing is I want to talk about what's the solution to this. Where do we start? What laws? What level does it have to change at? Don't go anywhere. We're going to continue the conversation here at Night Talk. Get to the point.